So what does Israel do about this non-ally, the United States?
What we have to do is try to bear in mind how I lived for 30 years in hell. Yirat Shamayim. I feared, and this was a principle that Esther, alayha shalom, drilled into me. She
Fear of
said,
heaven. Fear of heaven.
You fear no one but heaven. And if as long as what you're doing is according to Torah, she said, you have nothing to fear. Nothing. No man, no institution, no weapon, no perceived deficiency, nothing. You carry on. So what do we do practically right now? Well, I gave you one example where you tell these people point blank, you don't want to help us with equipment that you've promised us and that we have as an ally, supposedly, as a supposed ally, have a right to receive from you. Fine. Hakol b'seder, that's fine, no problem. We'll use what we have. The problem right now, and I'm finding a lot of problems that people have listening to me on this privately. And what is this? It is that when all else fails, we have certain weapons, non-conventional weapons, that we may have to use now. Everybody agrees that the reason that we actually invested so much money in a place like Dimona was as a deterrent. Well, I tell people, here's the headlines. They're not afraid of us anymore at all. And so now we must think the unthinkable. And we must seriously consider the actual use of these weapons. That's one of the, and there's nothing more than that will scare the devil out of the Americans, because they consider this opening the bottle for the genie to get out, and they will do anything to prevent that genie from popping out. And if that doesn't work, you don't threaten. You have to be quite sincere about this. If they don't take us seriously, then we must do whatever we have to do with these weapons to safeguard our existence. As far as our military-industrial complex is concerned, there's no time like the present to start changing and building and assembling. There isn't any weapon system
Netanyahu began addressing this recently, finally, after years of silence on the topic.
Correct. Even though during his first appearance before the joint session of Congress, he said we don't need any more economic assistance, and that Bibi Netanyahu, would like to convert all of the military assistance to joint R&D projects. Well, that got shut down immediately. Nobody wanted that, since the military assistance that we're receiving is nothing more than really industrial
a subsidy. It's a subsidy for the U.S. arms
welfare for the American military-industrial complex. They are the biggest backers of this largesse that we receive from military largesse that we receive from the Americans. We don't need it anymore. And I'm not in favor at all of joint R&D programs. Why? Because the Americans take it over. They put restrictions on where we can sell this equipment and to whom we could sell it. Because their mentality, their industrial mentality, is completely different from ours. As far as they're concerned, they have all the time in the world. They can mismanage, they can waste money. It doesn't matter for them. There's always more. For us, our lives depend on it. We need it now, very quickly. The Americans understood this mentality during the Second World War, when they could perceive a need, think up a solution, implement the solution, industrialize the solution, and get it out into the field. They could do that very quickly and commendably during the Second World War. Well, they've forgotten how to do that. We can still do that, because our lives, if not the existence of the state, depend on it. Look, there are many things that we can do right now with this cornet threat up north. I've told you before, we've discussed this. There's a weapon system I've suggested that we could use off the shelf. It would make a great export item. but they don't want to be bothered by this. I don't know why. I mean, the Hezbollah is using Cornets, these laser-guided anti-tank rockets with a 10-kilometer range, missiles rather, not rockets, all across the northern border. And they're a tank killer, for sure. Well, why wouldn't you want to defeat these without any major expenditure of resources? You know, just take what we've got, repackage it, put it out in the field, and knock them down electronically. Why not do this? I don't know. We've maybe become Americanized in terms of our military industrial production philosophy. I don't know. It's a question. I haven't even been contacted back for any detailed explanation as to why my suggestion isn't appropriate. They just don't care. They don't care. The houses are not occupied. That's what they told me officially. The houses are not occupied. So who cares? Wow. All right.
That's a very interesting defensive strategy.
Well, it's like the same thing that happened with the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome was supposed to buy us a little bit of time so that the army could mount an offensive operation against, Hamas. And what happened was we became so dependent on it, it basically relieved us of the necessity of mounting an offensive operation. What do we have to mount an offensive op? We can just knock them down with 95% accuracy.
It allowed the Harvard and Wexner Fund trained
correct
officers to pretend that we don't have a real problem.
Right, and that's why paradoxically the Iron Dome may not have been a very good thing for Israel, because if it didn't exist, Hamas would have disappeared a long time ago. But because we had this
was in fact pointed out many, many years ago by various people. Yes,
absolutely. This is not something that I came up with. I mean, I read about this paradoxical situation where this wonderful weapon system that is protecting our civilians primarily has actually been turned into an excuse for inaction. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know what's going to happen up north in Lebanon. I'm very scared because the amount of effort that's being put into this diplomatic solution to Hezbollah's presence in southern Lebanon is more than just buying time. This effort by the Israeli government and the Israeli military establishment smacks of desperation. And like any good predator, Hezbollah can tell that immediately. And so they continue to shoot. It's a war of attrition. And we cannot afford to wage a war of attrition, either because of manpower shortages or because of its economic costs. So how do we wean ourselves off the Americans? We have to get, first of all, we have to get rid of the galut mentality. We've been a people that have lived in galut for over 2,000 years. And unfortunately, we brought that disease, that mentality back to Israel. We've had a lot of people that have shed this problem, this galut mentality. We have a lot of people. And I'll show you one person.
David Ben-Gurion, to name one.
Strangely enough, David Ben-Gurion.
Strangely perhaps, but true.
But true. So we have a lot of people, actually, I have to be honest about this, that have shed it. But the deep state, and whether it's in the media or in academia or in the military or in politics, they've suppressed our ability to break out of this wretched mold and start living as Jews and fighting as Jews. We tend to forget we fought everybody, maybe not so successfully, but we fought it. We didn't have any problem fighting the Egyptians, the Philistines, the Canaanites, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, and even the Romans who were scared to death of us. Okay, did we lose? Yeah, we lost for a number of reasons, but there wasn't any fear on our part of fighting Al Kiddush Hashem. Okay, so now we just don't have this. When I talk to people and they look at me with this pained expression and they say, but the Americans won't let us. They won't let us. And I answer by saying, you ask them before you go to the bathroom? Do you do that also? Because it sure sounds like you do. You know, if you have a problem, I went to one speech I gave, I had two flags. One flag was a white flag, and the other one was our flag, our dagel. And I said, which one do you want? Because right now, this government has washed the blue out of this flag, and this is what we have. And I hold up the white flag. This is what we have. Is this what you want? Is this what we waited 2,000 years for? And everybody said, no, no, no. I said, then what are you prepared to do? What are you prepared to do? I'm not asking you to go out in the street and get yourself bashed over the head or arrested. I'm not asking that of you. What I'm asking you to do is the next time you go to vote, remember, Zachor, remember, not what Amalek did to you, but remember what your own supposed people did to you. Your leaders, your military officers, your deep state, remember that. Zachor. Yes, remember Amalek, what he did. They did. Remember that. But remember, Amalek had a lot of allies inside this country as well. Shikma Bessler being one of them. She's no Jewish patriot by a mile.
We must also recall and constantly remind everybody how we got into this current situation.
Oy.
And really, it can be traced back, essentially, it can be traced back to the defeatist attitude of the Israeli left in the wake of the Yom Kippur War.
Correct.
And which led directly to the Camp David Accords, which led again directly to the Oslo Accords, which led directly to Sharon's brilliant disengagement from Gaza, etc., etc. It's one leftist, so-called humanist, so-called realist, so-called universalist,
cosmopolitan
policy, one after the other. Each of these policies or each of these decisions has led to one disaster coming fast on the heels of the other. And that has to be pointed out. People, the 7th of October did not happen, did not come out from nowhere. It wasn't creatio ex nihilo. It didn't happen by
Not
itself.
at all.
It was the inexorable and logical conclusion of a long series of disastrous decisions, all of which are rooted in one thing, and that is a lack of true Jewish perspective and vision.
Correct. They say that, you know, after the 73 war, it was the left that got thrown out and the right came in. And now they're saying, well, maybe the right will get thrown out and the left will come. The point of the matter is the left and right are equally guilty. We need something new. We need Jews in government. You know, basically people who understand why we're here, what our mission is, what our future is. And it doesn't matter whether you're left or right. My attitude is, unless you're a Jew, you got no business being in government, period. And I mean a Jew that understands what Judaism is and why it's necessary to act on its principles. Don't have to wear a kippah. You don't need a beard like mine, nothing. It's right here in the heart. We don't have that in leadership positions right now because of everything that you've just mentioned.
We need to begin by shutting down the education ministry.
Oh boy, I'll be the first one.
The miseducation ministry.
The miseducation. or
and
the de-education ministry.
or and replacing it with something authentically Jewish and real and rooted in reality and not in daydreams.
Look, as I've said before, I don't mind if the ministry produces Jewishly ignorant students. Okay? I don't mind that, because there's a hope, there's a possibility of educating. What I've seen, though, because of the left's infiltration of the Ministry of Education, is the production of apikorsim, of Jews that have been Jewish kids that have been indoctrinated in the wrong views of Judaism, in the altered understanding of what Judaism is. And the fact that it was done illegally, I guess, is par for the course. All these organizations, leftist organizations that came in and took over the Jewish education program in the Ministry of Education, did so illegally, in a manner that was not prescribed by law. A lot of money went around. A lot of money was thrown around. And I have asked repeatedly, there needs to be an investigation of this, and heads must roll. Because it's not only an illegal act, it's an immoral act for these kids that are being taught inaccurate things. So this war has brought to the forefront the sickness that exists right now in Medinat Yisrael. The all-pervasive danger
amongst the self-appointed, self-styled elites who have managed to conquer all the essential intersections of power in the country over decades.
Look, I don't know if you know. You have no way of knowing this. I was supposed to give a lecture at the University of Haifa. Don't ask me. A friend of mine was running the course, a former minister in the government, somebody who was very active in efforts to secure my release, and who helped Esther unreservedly. So, okay, I thought I would go and give a lecture. I was banned by the university, in part because of what I said on this podcast, where I said, and I'm proud about this, where I had indicated that the president of the University of Haifa should be fired for allowing these 7 or 8 students, Arab students, who had written, horrible things about how happy they were, about what happened, about how happy they were that October 7th happened, and why it wasn't more extensive, and things of that ilk. And it wasn't just on your podcast, but in publications as well. I indicated that because they were letting them back in, Adala, of course, the Arab human rights organization got involved. Advocacy group got involved. Yeah. Pro-terrorist advocacy group got involved and backed them down. And of course they took them back. Of course. What do you think? We're going to discriminate against these people for free speech? Chas v'shalom, God forbid. Me? I didn't even know what the topic of the discussion was, which I usually don't. I usually walk in and I'm told, this is what you're going to talk about. And I was called the day before by the professor and said, he was embarrassed. I'm sorry, but they don't want you around. It isn't just in my class. They don't want you around because they consider your presence to be a provocation. And, my father, Alev Shalom, once told me that it's sometimes more important to be hated by certain people than liked by others. So I feel pretty good about the fact that I've lived long enough to be banned by the University of Haifa. And I want to thank you for the opportunity, for this opportunity. I want to thank you for this opportunity.
If those if those people are your enemies, then obviously you've done at least
something
one or two
right.
things correctly.
Probably.
With those thoughts, I think we should wrap this up for today. As always, it has been informative and enlightening. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
Jonathan Pollard.
Chag Sameach.
Tomorrow is Tu B'Shvat,
Yes.
but that actually it's not such a big hug in my humble opinion. But I'm not going to contest the point right now.
Okay, then send back all the fruit I sent you. Then.
all the best, Jonathan. Be well.
All the best.
May we be zoche, may we merit seeing the downfall of all of Am Yisrael's enemies.
Amen.
And nishma b'sarot tovot, yeshuot v'nehamot. May we hear good tidings and redemption.
Amen.
Shalom v'nisachon.
Shalom.